name is Helena Cole from Business Review Africa. Today I'll be speaking with His Excellency the Ambassador of Botswana High Commission to Nigeria. Thank you. So, Ambassador, thank you very much for having us here. We do not take this for granted. Thank you. So the mineral sector is the backbone of Botswana's economy, and by some measures, the largest contributor to the government revenues. I'd like you to tell us what measures put in place by the government to diversify the economic structure of Botswana in terms of moving away from mineral-based economy.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us, for the opportunity. Yes, Botswana, like most developing countries with a single commodity, the story of Botswana's economy is really about diamonds, minerals, particularly diamonds. I think you rightly say it's contributed a lot to our economic success, double-digit growth for better part of 40 years, and contributes the largest share of the gross domestic product. But as they say, diamonds are not forever, so we are working very hard to diversify away from minerals, particularly diamonds. So one of the things that the government has been pushing very hard, even in this post-COVID period, is to make sure that there's agro-processing, manufacturing, tourism. As you know, tourism is the second largest foreign exchange earner in Botswana. So when we look at an economy like a country like Nigeria, with its record of having so many travelers, we think we can attract Nigerians to come to see our tourism destination choices, but also to invest in the sector. So manufacturing it's quite important to us. That is why there are a lot of incentives that government has put in to attract investors in this sector.
Okay. Ambassador, I'd like you to take us through Botswana Beyond Diamond. What is Botswana Beyond Diamond? Yeah, of course we know Botswana is all about diamond minerals. So talk to us about Beyond Diamond.
Yes, Botswana is much more than the diamond. Although diamonds are so important to our economy, but Botswana is a country that is synonymous with peace, with good governance, and rule of law. So, like most countries, we want to ensure the protection and enjoyment of human rights. So Botswana, the country is Botswana, the people are called Botswana, the language is Setswana. So they are synonymous with peace wherever you find them. By the way, Botswana are not just in Botswana, but you find them in other countries in Southern Africa, like South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, even Zimbabwe. So we have something called a Khotla system. A Khotla system is like village democracy, where village elders gather around the tree to settle disputes, but also to talk about development. Development is a big part of our country, because when we became independent, really the country was one of the poorest in the world. But although diamonds were a big part of our later success, from the poorest to middle income status, I think it also a bit of no, not a bit, a lot, a large part to do with the visionary leadership of the first generation of leaders who, made sure that they consulted everyone, traditional leadership and communities, to agree that wherever natural resources are found, minerals and etc., they are going to be to the benefit of everybody. The state belongs to the mineral wealth, belongs to the state on behalf of the people. So that is the reason why after independence, the country was able now to start building roads, building schools, social sectors. Even today, education is free, healthcare is subsidized, all the way up to university education. So it is because of that, spirit of consultation, which is based from the quota system, that our first generation, we really owe whatever success we later had to them. So the prudent macroeconomic management of later years that we got to be known for, the least corrupt country in Africa, a country with very, very good sovereign credit ratings. It is all to do with these factors coming together. But of course, there is also an element of luck in the whole equation. So in essence, Botswana is all about peace, peaceful enjoyment of human rights, democracy, development, and of course, rule of law. As you know, in the world of investment and business, investors want predictability. So rule of law and judicial independence is very, very important attribute to Botswana.
So I'm talking about the ease of doing business in Botswana. I'd like you to just take us through. I want to go to Botswana. What are the procedures to legally and formally, operate a company in Botswana? And how long does it take to register a company?
Okay, we have the Botswana International Trade Center, which is the country's premier trade and investment promotion agency. So it acts as a one-stop center for assisting investors or business people, entrepreneurs with everything. Facilitation of business, investor facilitation. It helps with things like visas, work permits. It helps with waivers. Sometimes you will need waiver labors. It also helps with land, application for land. It helps with the registration of a company itself, and also it helps with licensing. So this is a one-stop center for helping potential entrepreneurs, investors, with everything that they will need to operate or do business in Botswana. In the past, now with the advent of technology and internet, it has really been the period, the length of time for registering a company has been shortened to as short as 5 days, because when everything, all the documentation is in order, then because the Botswana International Trade Center does everything, the things that I've stated, on behalf of the investor, including tax registration and security clearances and things like that. Applying for utilities, be it power, water, telecoms. So the Botswana International Trade Center has really been a big help in making sure that the ease of doing business in Botswana is improved in the last 5 to 10 years.
So Botswana is basically seen as a model, model economy in Africa. So why has Botswana been successful? Any lesson for other African countries?
I think, as I stated at the beginning, I think we owe it to our, leadership. I think we had that generation of, the first generation of leadership really set the tone, set the vision. And I guess it was easy for them because when you are starting from nothing, you can only, envision something better. So I think when you look at when we gained independence, we were in the middle. Botswana is smack in the middle of the Southern African region. So back in the days, in the 60s, when we got independence, to the south, we had the apartheid white rule, South Africa. To the north, northeast, you had then Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. To the west, we had Southwest Africa, then, now Namibia. And of course, the only country which was independent and self-ruling was Zambia in the northwest. So it is that generation of leadership which decided that in spite of the odds, stacked against them, being landlocked or land-linked, as some say today, the country still made a choice, a case to the United Nations, to the Organization of African Unity, then African Union now, that it is important, self-determination, independence of country, the right of individual people in their countries to rule is very, very important. You'll obviously understand that Botswana at the time, it did not have the means to declare economic sanctions on South Africa like other countries. But nonetheless, it made it very clear that in spite of its small size, we didn't even have an army for the first 10 years of our independence, by the way. So, but they still insisted that self-determination is important, and it is the right of the people to choose who their leader is. So I think that also underscores the peaceful nature of Botswana. We are peace-loving, really, in nature. You just need to, like most people, really. Even here in Nigeria, you'll see that African people are really peace-loving. So I think that played a major part in also influencing governance structures, because the consultation is a big part of of governance in Botswana. It is sometimes when people say the least corrupt country, it's not as if there is no corruption, but no government department or no one person, individual, can take a decision with far-reaching implications without consulting on others. And this is something that is really enforced, not just by law, but also by a sense of community, because you have to account to in government, but also to the communities, So that is why now it goes back to what I referred to earlier, the quota system. It is a village democracy, we would like to call it. It's not, sometimes people talk about democracy as if it's a Western concept which was brought in, but for us it's second nature, because consultation is a big part of governance. So I think all these factors played a role in, of course we are lucky to have people who are not doing things for themselves, or who are not, misappropriating public funds. So all these attributes came together to stamp Botswana out as a economic success story. But of course, this is not to say we do not have challenges. We still have challenges like in other African countries. One of the things that has come out of, free education, free healthcare, is that now we have, although our literacy rate is very high in the 80s, 82%, but now we are faced with youth unemployment, where the amount of children, students coming out of the tertiary education system, they are not able, the economy or the job market is not able to absorb them. So we have a very, unsustainable, youth unemployment challenge. We also have, because we are a landlocked country, there are certain costs. We don't have access to the sea, so transportation costs, for example, relative to other countries with access to the sea are comparatively higher. So these are some of the things, and also talk about equity and development and improvement of social lives of people. We have a worryingly high Gini coefficient. I mean, this is inequality, which is comparable to our neighboring countries like South Africa and Namibia. Yeah, so these are some of the challenges that the government is working very hard to make sure that it improves the lives of its citizens.
So still on Botswana economy, Botswana is perceived as Africa's most stable economy. Now, I would like you to talk to us what is responsible for Botswana's stable political stability.
Yeah, I think it's. I think our stability is really based on, that the consultative nature of doing business, the importance of always, being equitable, taking decisions on behalf of the community, not of the self. And this is something that has been ingrained in our system of governance, both at national and local government levels. But I think it's also helped that as I mentioned earlier, there's rule of law, there's judicial independence, and then there is also, respect for regulation, and the business environment is such that everyone is the investment climate is such that people can, especially investors and entrepreneurs, can go through their business. As they say, the business of business is business. You don't have a culture, for example, of bribing or giving money to a public official to do their job. I mean, actually, it's something that is still shunned on. When you help an individual, you do them whether you know them or you don't know them. You just do them without fear or favor. So these are some of the things which have really become second nature. And as you know, the clients, which are the communities, have actually expected them. I can just give you a story, an example. In Botswana, when you are a minister of government, you have access to the ministerial car, but the car will pick you up from your house in the morning, 7 o'clock. You go to work, it maybe bring you back for lunch, go back to the office, go to official events. But at 5 o'clock at the end of the day, if you have a private event to attend, a wedding, a funeral, a christening, a birthday, that is not official. So the car doesn't even spend the night at the minister's residence. It goes back to a central parking space. So the minister will have to use their own car to go to the family event because it's not official. And this is something because government vehicles are clearly marked. If maybe citizens see a minister or anybody, an official of government, misusing a public vehicle, it's something that they take the number down and they report to the Central Transport Organization, and there are repercussions for that. But these are the small little things which really are enforced. Actually, when you are in that position, the weight of expectation, the responsibility is such that you have to be seen to be there doing the right thing. So I think these are some of the things which have really, contributed to our, economic success story.
So that means you're just saying that it's so interesting, to hear this, and I think other African countries should learn from this. It means that Botswana government is accountable. We're talking about accountability, and of course, they are not wasteful.
Yes.
I'm correct.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Coming from Botswana.
Yeah. When you are in the public service, for example, the 8 principles of public service charter, public good, accountability, transparency. These are things which are enforced. Even for myself here as an ambassador, if there is anything that I do without consulting or informing my colleagues, then it will not pass muster, because consultation, transparency, doing something for the public good, accountability. Whatever that you buy, you have to justify why you bought that, and because it's not your private fund, it's public funds. So you have to account, all the time to the nation. So these are some of the things which I think maybe in other countries have fallen through the cracks, but they are very, very important. That is why now citizenship also comes into play, because it is the responsibility of the citizens, the community, to hold a public official accountable. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, because we know that AFTA will, boost intra-African trade, promote industrialization, and of course competitiveness, as well as contribute to job creation. So what infrastructural framework is put in place by the government of Botswana for effective implementation of Africa Continental Free Trade?
Yes, Africa doesn't trade with itself. When you compare Africa to other regions of the world, be it the European, Union, or the Mercosur in the Americas, or South Asia, in Asia, you find that Africa does not trade itself very much. So expansion of intra-African trade through better harmonization and coordination of trade liberalization is something using the vehicle and facilitation of the African free trade, continental free trade arrangement is something that is very, very instrumental, and is going to be a game changer because most African countries like mine, Nigeria, we just, in Nigeria is the oil, in Botswana is the diamonds. So until there's beneficiation, so that the value-added services are done in the countries instead of just, selling the the raw material and then buying it back. In the case of diamonds, it will be gem, jewelry. In the case of crude oil, it will be refined petroleum products. So the African free trade arrangement is very, very important. So Botswana, like other like-minded countries, although we have not yet signed, domesticated, because of the need to, either introduce or amend certain legislations which is already in place, other laws. But it's something that, we support entirely. And in the process, the government, the country has been building up infrastructure. For example, we recently opened a major bridge between the Zambezi River, which will link Botswana and Zambia. This is just merely less than 2 kilometers bridge across the mighty Zambezi. The benefits from such a project are so, regional. They are regional because it's not just between Botswana and Zambia, but it will connect the entire Southern Africa region with the East and the East Africa region, as well as the Central Africa region. So this will definitely, and it's already having a positive impact in terms of trade volumes, the increase in trade volumes, increase in market access of products, from either from the south, from the central, or the eastern areas of regions of Africa. So the African Continental Free Trade Area is quite instrumental to the integration of Africa, and it will eventually, ensure that the living standards of citizens of Africa are improved. As long as African countries are trading with each other, as opposed to the current arrangement where you take any African country, you'll find that some of its major trade partners will not be a neighboring African country. It will be a country in Europe, a country in the Americas, or a country in Asia. So that's why I say it will be a very, very important contributor to the improvement of living standards of citizens of Africa.
So not so much has been done, even though we've heard about the Africa Continental Free Trade, but I still feel that not so much has been done after the signing, and of course at the moment we're still in the operationalization phase of after. What do you think should be done for the African nations to jumpstart, in earnest? Because it doesn't look like anything is happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree with you. I think because countries are at different levels of development, so there is a challenge. But really, the ideal for regional integration is to ensure that countries now really have put in place policies which will, encourage capital flows, because if, for example, it's difficult to go to a neighboring country, to fly to a neighboring country, but it's easier to fly to a European country, you'll find that people will always flock to where it is easy to either have ease of travel or ease of doing business there. So I think countries have to work hard to put in place, to harmonize services. I think infrastructure development is a huge part of the whole process, because people get once people are accustomed to something, they want, that's the bare minimum, or it's either that or they want better. You will remember that when this technology, introduction of technology, things like iPad and things like mobile phones, for anybody who's going to do better than come up with something better than an iPad or a mobile phone, it is either going to be that level or it has to be better. So I think for the African region, African continent to really integrate, there has to be a huge infrastructure development. Countries have to try and harmonize, things like, services at in ports, in borders, in, airports, and also, make it easier for I think visa issuance or permit, work permit issuance. So, because that's why today in Africa is not trading with itself, because there are just too many barriers. The cost of doing business is high, and then there are sometimes not an illegal things like bribing or having to, go beyond the normal, steps to get a service. So these are some of the things that collectively African countries are going to have to harmonize, so that the dream of Africa really becoming a major player in the global economy is realized.
So still on Botswana economy, Botswana is perceived as one of the most attractive investment destination in Africa, with the strong, institutions and rule of law. Now, encouraging potential investors, what policies and reforms, contributed to Botswana economic stability and growth?
Okay, I think the investment climate in Botswana is, like I've mentioned before, there's prudent political and macroeconomic management. This is a big part of, our business investment climate. Botswana currently has the highest sovereign credit rating in Africa. I think Moody's rating is A3, and then Standard & Poor's is BBB and A2. We also have another contributor is we have stable labor market. Our labor market is not unionized as compared to other countries. So, we demonstrated recently with the management of COVID-19. That when the chips are down, we can come to the party, because I think we have almost met the WHO target of having 70% of citizens being fully vaccinated. I think we're at 64, 65%, is at least end of July or something. I think the other big contributor is having a very sound legal system. I mean, investors prefer predictability and stability. If they are going to put their money somewhere, they want to have legitimate expectation that they will get a return on their investment. And we have also, it has also helped that we have had decades of sustained periods of positive economic growth rates. I mean, double digit. I mean, of course, that is as a result of diamonds, but I think I keep on saying we managed to avoid the reverse curse which has afflicted other countries, and the Dutch disease, and that goes back to leadership. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I keep on, talking about the visionary leadership of the first generation of leaders. So the other thing, of course, government understanding the challenges of being landlocked, the challenges of being a small population. We're only 2.3 million, by the way. So when an investor wants to come and put up a business in Botswana, we have to, they have to really answer the question, why Botswana and not a neighboring country which has got 10 times your population? So the government has put in very, very favorable incentives to attract potential investors. So our corporate tax is 22, corporate tax rate is 22%. We also have we don't have exchange controls. If you are investing in Botswana, you are at liberty to repatriate your profits anytime you wish to. We also have a very, very favorable taxation regime of, I think it's 15% manufacturing tax, 15% for manufacturing. If you are in manufacturing, if you are in the financial services business, or if you are involved in what we call the innovation hub, where issues of creativity and innovation. So we also have a relatively, competitive value-added tax of 12% when we compare with other countries in our region. It's 14, 16, some are even up to 18, 20%. So there are also incentives for training. If you come and invest in Botswana and you train your staff, you get rebates of up to 200% tax rebates. So these are some of the things. These are some of the incentives which have been put in place. And the other one, of course, is custom duty. If you are importing machinery for use in the agriculture or for production, it is zero rated. So you're not taxed. So these are some of the things that have really put us in a favorable position to compete. And of course, the other thing, which is the zero tolerance to corruption. I mean, really, I was telling the story about the minister, but there are other instances where, when we see something wrong, there are authorities that you can report to. I think the ambassador of Botswana is doing something that is not in keeping with the requirements of the public service charter. So these are some of the things that have really improved our standing in the eyes of investors and entrepreneurs. Like I say, they want to take their money where they know that it is going to be safe. And of course, when you have, less crime, that also helps. And Botswana also has got, free education. The literacy rate is in the 80s. It's 82 to 85%. So we have a very, very, mobile, highly educated, easily trainable, skills transfer is something that attracts investors to come and put their money in our jurisdiction. The other thing may be also inflation. I mean, we have right now, because of the disruptions to supply chains across the globe owing to the COVID, the pandemic, the war in Europe, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We are above range. Our range of inflation, according to our central bank, is 3 to 6%. Right now, at least at the beginning of August, it was at 10%. But all indications are that as the economy improves and it will go back to the 3 to 6% range, which is set by the central bank. So, like I said, there are no restrictions on foreign business ownership, even up to 100%, because our thinking is as long as you are providing jobs, as long as you are paying tax, then you'll be eligible to some of these incentives, especially because we have a high unemployment challenge. So anybody is going to help us alleviate unemployment. Skills transfer, they are incentivized whether you are a citizen or a foreigner. So these are some of the things that have really led to our competitiveness. It's still, diversification is still a challenge, but I think we think we have put in place, put ourselves in a place where we can, compete, because if you are doing right, by not just by your people, your community, your country, but by the international standards, it's something that can only, stand you in good stead going forward.
Talking about, you said so much about the investment, in Botswana. So what are the investment opportunities in Botswana?
Yes, obviously because of our endowment in the mineral sector, Botswana, as the mining and resource beneficiation, is still a big opportunity for investors. I mean, here I'm talking about minerals like diamond, of course, copper, nickel, and coal. Actually, we have more coal than any other minerals in Botswana. We also have a huge endowment in the soda ash. So these are some of the things, salt, soda ash, that we are endowed with. There's also massive opportunities in the energy sector. A lot of countries now are having, energy crisis, electricity, power outages. Yet we are in Africa, where we are endowed more than any other region of the world with sunlight. I think we have 3-4 times as much sunlight as other countries in the world. Solar and of course in power generation using the coal, because in Botswana actually our electricity is coal generated. And with the increase, the advancement in technology, there's now new technologies to turn coal into liquids, as part of energy provision. The other sector which is also contributing quite a lot as part of the diversification away from minerals is the services sector, and some of the incentives that I mentioned earlier, investing in the international financial services sector, are actually meant to encourage investors in the services sector, in the business process outsourcing, in ICT, and actually even in tourism itself, to attract tourism. So manufacturing is another opportunity. We have a very huge food import bill in Botswana. I think we import about in 2021, we imported $8.1 billion imports. But if you compare that with what we are exporting or importing to Nigeria, it's just, we export $500 million, $500,000 worth to Nigeria, and we're importing less than $200,000 worth from Nigeria. This is not on for Africa's largest, most populous country in Africa. So manufacturing, it's something that we are also, concentrating in pharmaceuticals, in motor vehicle components. This is sometimes when you see some of this luxury cars, if they are made in South Africa, chances are the components would have been made in Botswana. The other sector which government is actually pouring a lot of funding into is the agribusiness. One of the things that the government has tried to do is to make sure that to encourage young people to venture into agribusiness, agro-processing, by way of making it more fashionable. Instead of, one of the things which came out of urbanization is young people, as they got more educated, they left their older folks in the rural. So the average age of a farmer in Africa is probably around 50 something, in the 50s. So if you can get young people in their 20s, in their 30s, to now venture into agriculture using this latest fourth industrial revolution innovations, it's something that government is pushing a lot of effort into. Horticulture is also an area of interest to us. And last but not least is also tourism. We want to see ourselves as a center for meetings, exhibitions, conferences in the future. We are encouraging, potential investors to come and invest in lodges, in hotels. You might want to know that why tourism, because 40% of the land mass of Botswana is reserved for national parks and game reserves. And you might also know that Botswana has got the world's largest population of elephants in the world. So we are open for business for investors, particularly from Nigeria, who would want to come and, invest in this area of tourism. So these are some of the sectors that government is putting a lot of priority on to make sure that we really, improve the livelihoods, living standards of our citizens, and also reduce the youth unemployment challenge.
The Botswana president, during the official opening of the virtual 49th Southern Africa Development Community, he said it's important for Africa Continental Free Trade Area to be domesticated at the national level. So how important is domestication of the Africa Continental Free Trade at the national level?
It is imperative for Africa to be doing business with itself. I mean, if the regional economic groups, the RECs in Africa, can amongst themselves improve business, then integration will now go beyond them amongst the RECs, but also across the African countries. So domestication it will be the ultimate stage to ensure that Africa really does business with Africa. It's really embarrassing for the last frontier, as Africa has been called, to realize that its contribution to global GDP is still less than 10%. Yet we are endowed with everything that other countries are looking for. So domestication is the ultimate for the real integration of the continent, and by so doing, Africa will have taken its rightful place in the community of nations.
Okay, but do you also think that, because you said something about Africa being endowed with lots of natural resources,
yeah.
What do you think the African governments should do in your own way? I mean, because we have so much in Africa, but yet, we're still depending on foreign aid and all that. What should be done for Africa to be self-sufficient with the natural resources that they have?
Yeah, I think Africa has the problem of Africa. I think in the main has always been leadership. So if you could have a leadership which is honorably and really accountable to its citizens, which really wants to improve the living standards and the livelihoods of its citizens. But in most cases, unfortunately, most African countries, after gaining independence, even those who inherited very, very good workable systems, they sort of, looked at individual gain. And I think that has been the biggest problem, because you cannot really blame the problems of Africa to ordinary citizens who are maybe not worldly enough to know about other parts of the world. So for me, personally, I believe Africa has had a leadership problem, and that this has also meant that citizens of countries have really not taken up the mettle of holding their leaders to account. So sometimes when you see that people want to, it is the duty of a leader to provide roads, to provide, social infrastructure, schools, health facilities. So sometimes people have become so, I don't know, desperate that they sometimes think the money is coming from an individual leader, whereas it is from the tax of the citizens. So I think without you getting into trouble, I think getting me into trouble, I think Africa has had a leadership challenge, and but also the citizens have to come to the party and hold their leaders to account.
What is the state of Botswana and Nigeria bilateral relations?
Yeah, the state of our bilateral relations, Botswana and Nigeria, is and has always been cordial ever since our independence. Botswana got independence in 1966, and then 6 years after Nigeria. So Nigeria played a huge role. As I told you earlier, at independence, we had nothing. I mean, there's a story that goes that we had less than 20 graduates. We had less than 5 kilometers of tarred road, because we got independence before the diamonds were discovered. So when we became independent, there was really nothing. So our early, we owe our early years, development to the goodwill of countries like Nigeria in terms of human resource development. For example, we didn't have a university in Botswana, so some of the students who did well in high school and did well enough to go proceed to tertiary education, they came to Nigeria, to the Ibadans of this world. I mean, to do very, very serious courses, geology, veterinary, law, and things like that. And even in the civil service and in the private sector, Nigeria played a big role in terms of provision of doctors, for example, in the early years, formative years. One of our early black chief justices was a Nigerian, by the way. So in the judiciary, in the lecturers, when we later had tertiary institutions. So it just goes to show that before the diamonds were discovered, countries like Nigeria really played a huge role in our, in hand holding us to be able to, stand on our own. But so even though the state of bilateral relations is good, it is really in this 21st century, 2022, 56 years of independence of Botswana. I just told you earlier that we export only $500,000 of goods to Nigeria, and we import less than $200,000. I think we can do more. And one of the things that has been our remit, our mandate in this office is to ensure and work hard to make sure that we improve, the trade and trade relations, between Botswana and Nigeria, because in this day and age, democracy, we take it for granted. Every country is now democratic. So what is important is to make sure that people are trading with each other. Villagers in both countries, traders, entrepreneurs should be doing business with each other. This will eventually have a spillover effect in the real integration of the country, the continent. After all, we are talking about the African continental free trade area and regional integration of Africa. And definitely Nigeria, the most populous nation in Africa, the largest economy in Africa, is the natural gateway economy, to access the benefits accruing from the African free trade arrangement. So there is a lot that we can do. Some of the things that we are looking at, as I mentioned, is agriculture, agribusiness, tourism. We know Nigerians are traveling the world. How many times can you go to London, Dubai, and New York? Maybe we're encouraging some of them to come and spend their money in our tourism destination of choices. Nigeria also is leading the world, definitely the continent, insofar as the creative entertainment sector. So be it music, fashion, television, and movies. So these are some of the things which, from our vantage point as a country with unemployment, youth unemployment, and we see the potential, the employment creating nature of the entertainment sector. It's something that we are pushing to make sure that we learn best practices, good practices from Nigeria and vice versa.
Today is Botswana National Day.
Yeah.
I'm excited as much as you are also excited. Can you just tell us what we should be expecting or looking forward to in Botswana National Day?
I think it's a time for reflection. We just came out of a very, very difficult challenge of COVID-19. Unlike Nigeria, we were affected more, but then again, we are a country of 2.3 million. So one of the things which caused the leadership, the President Masisi, and his cabinet government embarked on what is called a reset agenda. This reset agenda was basically to ensure that the lives of Botswana people are saved, and for us, because of this economic classification as a middle income country, we were not given, we had to buy the vaccines. And you can imagine, we paid for the vaccines, but at the time when our people were dying, we still did not have access to those vaccines because of holding of vaccines by the manufacturing countries and vaccine equity issues. So it has been a very difficult period, but I think I can report that right now our economy is performing slightly better after dropping. There's one quarter in 2021 where we were in the negative territory, 26% below zero. And now we're just hovering under 10% growth rate. So it's a time for reflection. One of the things also, the other aspect of the research agenda was to, inculcate a mindset change. So we cannot be doing things the way we did them 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. We now have to take advantage of innovations, the fourth industrial revolution, digitization of services is a big part of what the government is doing now. So as the supply chain, shortfalls are slowly getting back. So Independence Day is a time for reflection. One of the things that we realized at the time when the borders were closed, the airports were closed, we were not able to get even things like a mask, things like a thermometer. So it gave even food, because as I say, we are a net importer of food in Botswana because we are a semi-arid country. Sometimes we don't have enough rainfall to grow our own food. But the one thing that the people of Botswana realized, the importance of being responsible for producing their own food to help the food insecurity challenges. So these are some of the things as we celebrate our 56th year of independence that we will be reflecting upon. Of course, you know, it's well and good to say at independence we were poor, but we have done well. But now the challenges now need a different kind of response. So that is why President Masisi and his cabinet, his executive, you know, challenged everybody in government and citizens to really inculcate, you know, mindset and, you know, be more innovative and creative in coming up with solutions which are relevant with the times that we are in.
So you are the Deputy Dean of Southern Group of Ambassadors in Nigeria. What does this mean? What are your duty as the ambassador?
Okay. Yes, Botswana is a founding member of the Southern African Development Community. This is one of the regional economic groupings of Africa. Southern Africa is East Africa, is West Africa, ECOWAS, and North Africa, and Central Africa. So we are 8 countries are resident in Nigeria: Angola, Botswana, Democratic Republic of Congo, Namibia, South Africa, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So far, out of the 16 member countries, only 8 are resident or have embassies in Nigeria. So I'm the deputy dean, in a nutshell, just the second longest serving, you know, having been here for 5 years. So Angola is the current dean, so I'm Angola's deputy. So it is part of our collective, you know, effort to do collective diplomacy, to improve, you know, collaboration, you know, and knowledge, understanding, familiarization with the SADC region, with Nigeria, because one of the things that we realize in the course of doing our work is the importance of community outreach, and also we felt it is better, it is our mandate to engage the different constituencies, be it it could be investors, it could be the government, it could be the academia, it could be potential, you know, private sector, civil society. So these are some of the things that we do. We have a work program of giving lecturers in the high schools and universities. We have a program to reach out to potential tourists, because one thing that we realized in, for example, tourism promotion is somebody would want to visit Botswana, but they might also want to visit Cape Town and Victoria Falls in Zambia. So these are some of the things that we felt it is important to do as a collective. So speaking on behalf of Botswana, Botswana has been a leading member, a founding member of the Southern African Development Community. It was founded in 1980. So it used to be called the Southern Africa Development Coordination Conference. At the beginning, it was formed at the height of instability, and South Africa was still not, Mandela was still in prison, Zimbabwe was not yet independent, Namibia was not yet independent, Mozambique and Angola were involved in a civil war. So it was formed to, for political independence of these countries, but also to lessen economic dependence on South Africa. So in 1992, it was eventually transited into a Southern African Development Community now to really ensure that the region becomes fully integrated. So we've got our work cut out. So these are some of the things that even in the run-up to the elections, we have been meeting the different stakeholders in the civil society space, political parties, engaging them, like the election, governing body, INEC, and other individual, players to learn, but also to exchange views on ensuring that we increase level of, cooperation, increase level of, business to business partnerships between the Southern Africa and Nigeria. So Botswana is the headquarters of the Southern African Development Community, just like Nigeria is the headquarters of the ECOWAS group. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Ambassador.
Thank you.
It was really nice having one-on-one with you. Thank you very much for the useful insights on Botswana economy and, of course, the political system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. That is it with the High Commissioner of Botswana to Nigeria. And of course, as you heard from him, Botswana is open for business, especially those of us who are in Nigeria. So if you're thinking of going to Botswana, think investment. And of course, like he said, Botswana is a stable economy. And of course, they have their political stability is on top notch. Thank you and bye.